the man of peace, the New World Order, are going to use the same thing in a few years to come, or a few months to come, or a few weeks to come. I don't know when, but we are heading towards the near of the world. Very soon Jesus is coming, and very soon the Antichrist will be showing up. Take this word seriously. Take this word seriously, for very soon things are about to change. This freedom of you hearing me, a time is coming. You will not get that privilege anymore, because people like me sharing this truth to you, they will rather either capture you or block our website, block our messages, or get us out of the way, or we'll be even raptured, because Jesus is coming soon. And let me let you know, I'm not a date fixer. I don't fix date. And I will tell you the truth, I don't know the day, the hour, the time Jesus is coming. I don't know it. If anyone said, or if you have ever thought I do fix date or think I know, I don't know the date. I don't know the time. The reason why I write 2012 in my videos is because every year I treat it as though Jesus is coming that year. Every year. If it is 2014, I'll be writing 2014, Rapture 2014. I will be doing that every year. This year I'm doing 2012 because it's the year. I'm expecting it. I don't know the day. I don't know the time Jesus Christ is coming. Nobody knows it. Don't be fooled. I don't know it. And I'm not saying Jesus is coming this year. It could be this year. It could be next year. I don't know. But I know that he's on his way. And he's coming. It's very soon. It could be today or tomorrow. You just have to get ready. But this same move.
Last hour, we learned that the White House is moving ahead with new sanctions on Iranian oil to punish Tehran for its nuclear program. The president deciding that there is enough crude oil on the world markets to take this step without harming the U.S. or its allies. But this comes after explosive accusations that the White House leaked classified information to stop Israel from attacking Iran. Yesterday on our show, former Ambassador John Bolton called out the administration after reports surfaced that Israel had been granted access to airfields in Azerbaijan. That's along Iran's northern border. Let's listen.
I think that the pressure that the administration has put on Israel has been just merciless behind the scenes. But nonetheless, as I say, every evidence is that the pressure's failing, that the Israeli government will do what they think is necessary. So the Obama administration has torqued it up a notch, and now they're going to reveal very sensitive, very important information that will allow Iran to defeat an Israeli attack. I think that's what's going on.
So does this jeopardize our relationship with Israel? Let's ask Fox News national security analyst KT McFarland. KT, great to see you.
Good to be with you.
Do you agree with Ambassador Bolton and what he said yesterday, that the U.S. is intentionally leaking this classified information to undermine Israel and get it to stop whatever plans it has to attack Iran?
Well, the administration doesn't want any kind of a problem in the Middle East before the election. They don't want an Israeli attack on Iranian sites because they think it'll lead to a regional war, draw the United States in. They don't want that kind of a situation because they think it'll lead to high oil prices, high gasoline prices. The way I think about it right now is it's like a foot race where everybody's racing. You've got Iran racing to get to the finish line of getting nukes as fast as they can. You have Israel racing to stop Iran from making those nukes. And you have the United States racing to stop Israel from stopping Iran.
I mean, of course the U.S. doesn't want to be drawn into another war.
Nobody wants
another war. That's
Even Israel
practical.
doesn't want another
Of course. I mean, that's logical. Is there any way for Iran to take whatever action it feels necessary without the U.S. getting dragged into something?
Well, the question is it one of time? How much time does everybody have left? And I've got to tell you, the people who know aren't talking, and the people who are talking probably don't know. The question is, does Iran get to that finish line before the election? Does Israel realize that it only has a certain amount of time, so it's got to have some preemptive attack? Or, as President Obama is saying today, do we let sanctions work? There's enough time. Those sanctions are somehow going to get the Iranians to go to the negotiating table and give up their nukes. However, they have not up until this point.
But what about this other question of the U.S. possibly leaking classified information and compromising Israel if, in fact, nobody knew that there were air bases at Azerbaijan that were going to be made available? What does this do to the relationship with Israel?
I think the bigger problem this week was not so much the leaking of information about the Azerbaijan airfields that Israel might or might not use. Look, Israel's trying to hedge all of its bets. It's looking for friends. It's looking for military capabilities. It's looking for sabotaging the Iranian program. It's looking for assassinating potential Iranian scientists involved in that program. But to me, the bigger problem was that open mic. When President Obama leaned over to the Russian leader and said, don't worry, after the election I'll have more flexibility. Now, these are the same Russian leaders who have just spent 6 months trashing the United States in their election campaign. If you're the country of Israel and you're the Prime Minister of Israel and you're listening to that and you're hearing an American president saying, once I'm reelected, there'll be a different deal, you've got to wonder, hey, this is the guy who just said, I've got your back. Don't worry, we're not going to let Iran get nuclear weapons. You've got to wonder that after Obama is reelected, if he is, can Israel count on his word?
I see, because it makes it seem as though the president is disingenuous.
To everybody. You have to wonder, where's the truth here? And if Obama's saying to Israel, wait till after the election, whatever you do, wait till after the election, you got to wonder if after the election, is he still your friend?
Let's talk about what he announced today in terms of the sanctions on these foreign financial institutions that do business with Iran. What impact will that have, do you think?
There are a couple of things going on with these sanctions. We've had sanctions for years with Iran. They haven't stopped Iran's behavior. We're now into a new phase of sanctions, and these are basically targeting the Iranian banking system. And it's like think of it as putting like a great big embargo around Iranian oil, but you're using banks instead of battleships. What's the objective? What are you trying to do with these sanctions? Well, one idea, the administration says that the Iranians will realize that they've got to go to the negotiating table and negotiate away their nukes. I think that's naive. The closer Iran gets to those nukes, they're going to race to that finish. The other objective might be to say to the Iranians, to the Iranian people, things are so bad, you should go out into the streets again, topple your regime the way the Egyptians did, the way the Syrians are trying to do, the way the Libyans have done, the way the Moroccans have done, and then maybe Iran under different leadership has a different plan.
Well, yes, except that Iran tried that. The Iranians tried that, and we didn't necessarily have their backs.
Totally. We snuffed them. That was, in fact, I think, the beginning of the Arab Spring, when the Iranian people went to the streets in 2009. The question will be now for this administration, if the Iranian people go to the streets again, and I'm not saying they will, but if they were, would this president then welcome them the same way that he welcomed the Egyptians who went to the streets?
So do you think that's the answer? To foment an uprising there?
They're lousy options. We either bomb Iran, let Iran get the bomb. Those are two losers. One is a regional war, one is a nuclear Iran. Is there a third option? Is there an option C? I think it's a long shot, but I would go for option C, try to crash their economy using the oil weapon.
All right, KT McFarland, thanks so much. Always great to have your expertise. joined now on that new report coming in saying that the U.S. thinks that Azerbaijan has recently granted Israel access to air bases along its border with Iran. If true, that means the Israelis could strike Iran's nuclear facilities without having to refuel, and that is a big change in Israel's military situation. John Bolton is the former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. Hello, Mr. Ambassador.
Hi, Allison. Glad to be here.
So if these new reports are correct, that Israel is now being granted access to Azerbaijan, what does this mean?
Well, I'd say two things. One, substantively, obviously Israel can do the math and the geography, and if it can get positions closer to Iran's nuclear targets to be able to attack them, that's so much the better from Israel's point of view. Israel knows how difficult preemptive military attack would be, and it's not surprising if these reports are true, and I'm not commenting one way or the other whether they are. But I think there's another point here beneath the substantive point, and that is that these reports come from American intelligence officials. Now, if you think back a month or so ago, Defense Secretary Panetta said publicly that he thought if Israel attacked Iran, it would be in the April, May, June period. And I think the reason he did that was that the Obama administration's private effort to pressure Israel not to attack Iran were failing, and they had decided to go public. I think this leak today is part of the administration's campaign against an Israeli attack.
Yeah, in fact, you're not alone. There are reports today in Israel News that, in fact, the U.S. is leaking this classified information in order to dissuade Israel. So why is the U.S. doing that?
I think the Obama administration has long believed that an Israeli attack was worse than an Iranian nuclear weapon. The president says that containment and deterrence of Iran is not his policy, and I think today that's true. But it's his plan B. It's his backup plan when his current efforts at sanctions fail and diplomacy fails and Iran gets nuclear weapons. And I think that the pressure that the administration has put on Israel has been just merciless behind the scenes. But nonetheless, as I say, every evidence is that the pressure's failing, that the Israeli government will do what they think is necessary. So the Obama administration has torqued it up a notch, and now they're going to reveal very sensitive, very important information that will allow Iran to defeat an Israeli attack. I think that's what's going on.
So if Israel does take advantage of these Azerbaijani airstrips or places that they can launch from, what does that mean for the U.S.?
Well, I'm not saying I have any knowledge about anything in Azerbaijan, but what it means is that the likelihood of an Israeli attack would be more successful because the distances are shorter. They can have their planes over the target for longer periods of time. They have to worry less about aerial refueling. There are a whole host of reasons why being able to attack from closer in positions makes sense. So releasing this information so that the Iranians now know about it takes away a potentially very powerful mode of attack that hitherto the Israelis had been able to keep secret.
Former Ambassador John Bolton, thanks so much for your expertise.
drank a lot and partied a lot, and I was moved to Tucson, Arizona, and I was working at a construction site, and one of the guys brought some water from Mexico that was contaminated, and I ended up drinking it by accident. Got real sick, contracted cholera, and within about 72 hours I was flat on my back and basically dehydrated. That's when I passed away. I noticed that when I passed on, that of course I wear glasses and I'm very nearsighted. I noticed that, first thing I noticed is that I wasn't wearing my glasses. I could see clearly across the room. And when I turned my head, I noticed that my body wasn't moving. And I was lifted right out of my body and hovered over my body, looking down at myself and looking around. And next thing I knew, I went through the ceiling of the room I was in, and I was transported into a very, very, very black, dark void. I could hear like somebody speaking to me, like telepathy. And it was explaining to me many, many things that I no longer remember, but most of the idea was explaining to you the whys of life, why there was evil in the world, why this, why, people have questions all the time. These were being answered to you as you were being transported to this light. And time you got to where the light was, you knew what happened, you know what's going on. You know what happened. You know you died. You know you're going to be judged. And everything as you're traveling, it's made so clear to you that what's happening is perfectly just and right. I was going through the darkness and was approaching the light there. one vortex was spinning, and a lady that had just died in a car wreck came through, and she was deposited right there. And I saw her as she arrived, and inside her cube, she saw it as the illusion of her grandmother's farm, that her grandparents' farm that she loved so well as when she was growing up. And her grandmother recently passed away too, so she got in this cube, and immediately she thought she was in heaven because there was her grandmother waiting there welcoming her. The grandmother that was actually a demon that gave the illusion of being the grandmother said, "Dear Pudding, you made it to heaven. I'm so glad you're here." And she really thought that she was in paradise. But there was a darker side to her. She would make her children be what she wanted. Her children wanted something else. She wanted them to be this. And if they didn't do it her way, it was the fist. It was verbal abuse. It was cutting down. So as she sat down, I was watching it, and the tree's limbs just grabbed her. And then she realized she was not in paradise. And as we passed some cubes, there were people inside, and they were trapped in flames. And it was like their skin was still intact, but they were burning. And there was an individual, and he was playing pool. And this guy was a child serial killer, but he lived in the 1940s. But he was in this pool hall playing this pool before the punishments would commence again. He thought he had a break. And then these people in there would torment him and come and run and just grab him and tear him up. And out of the sky, I could see this big demon coming down. It reminded me of a snake. He just gobbled him and swallowed him. Then all the other little demons came up and said, "That's no fair. We didn't have our chance with him yet." He regurgitated him back up. He was whole. I know this sounds really bizarre, but that's what happened. Then all the other little demons, little teeny things, about 3 foot tall, just jumped on him. And he was powerless. And they were beating and clawing, and there was no rest for this guy whatsoever after that. It was constant torment. Everything that he ever done was being justly put back to him. Came to a cube. I was looking at this, and this was a woman. She was dressed in fine garb. She was a temple prostitute, basically what it was. And she was somebody who died in Corinth around 69 AD. For a price, she would have a newborn son. For some reason, their religion was some strange thing. When you have a newborn son, you can offer it into a statue, and there's flames underneath the statue. You put the baby on the statue, and basically the baby would be cooked. And here she is in this temple. There was no let up to her torment. It was almost like all the little babies that she burned that were hers and other people's were tormenting her, mocking her, pouncing on her, just crawling and tearing her up. And she just screamed, and I had to turn away and walk. There's an individual that she practiced the black dark craft. She was a witch. I just knew that she was a witch, but she died many hundreds of years ago. But she was trapped in a coffin, scratching, trying to get out. She couldn't get out. She was in that position for years and years and years and years, hundreds of years. And then finally, when she got it open, all the demons would pounce on her. And I walked on to another cube. We looked in this other cube on this row, and there was another lady. And she believed that Mother Earth could save her. And then if she honored the trees and the rocks, and she was into this nature thing, and part of their religious practice that she would practice would be getting out in the fields and dancing around a fire with a bunch of other people doing the same. The people that she thought that she was with were actually demons, and they would come up to her and say, "You did this." They pick up a stone. You say, "The stone will save you here," and they smacked her with it. So she was standing there, and the demons reached down there and reached in her mouth, ripped out her tongue and part of her thing. Says, "You talk bad? Oh, the stones are not going to save you. Nobody can save you." Then they ripped off her, just actually took her skin and just peeled it off. It was really slow and agonizing to shreds until nothing but the skeletons. Then they took the bones and broke the bones. And she felt everything. And then her body would come back together. The flesh would come back together, and she'd be whole again, and it would start all over again. A different scene would happen. And some of the cruelest people on earth were in these. You know, some people, I don't like to say names of people or anything like that, but I will, you know, this one particular individual is definitely there, and everybody knows who it is. It's Adolf Hitler.